Hey lovelies, it's Alex here. My big question today for you is, are you a busy mother who feels like she's constantly reaching to move forward towards her goals and her intentions and constantly being pulled back? I've talked about this a lot lately in my last few videos, and about, how mothers are seeking to, hi Melissa, hi love, and how mothers who have this drive to get stuff done, who maybe have a purpose, that they know that there is, that the world needs something more from them than just being a mother to their children, and who simultaneously want to be present for their families. And I've talked a lot about in my last videos how they struggle. I've shared some tips on how to manage this kind of feeling of trying to move forward, trying to kind of get ahead, trying to catch up, and at the same time feeling sometimes guilt and sometimes just a really strong desire to be present for your little people and for your partner if you have a partner. If you want to look at these videos, and the last one was particularly juicy because we talked a lot about the patriarchy and how the fact that we've internalized a lot of patriarchal messages often gets in the way of us moving forward. I'm just, my notes are over there, which is why I keep looking over there. So you can check those out on my other Facebook Lives, or if you're watching this on Instagram, you can look at my previous IGTV videos. But all of what I'm saying is what I'm going to talk, it's kind of like the big picture stuff of what I'm going to talk about today. However, I feel like the last 3 weeks has been a microcosm of all of that. And it's presented itself at a time when we are just chomping at the bit, or at least I'm chomping at the bit to move forward and get shit done because it's the new decade. So I don't know if any of you have felt this. I don't know if any of you stepped into 2020 with super excitement and then have just felt completely restrained by it all. By it all, I mean, what is it all? By being a mom, having the kids, having the responsibilities. In my case, it was also about having a lot of kind of unfinished business from 2019 that needed to get done in order for me to move forward. But there were other things too, and I'm going to jump into them. When I was preparing for this pop-up Facebook Live, so I always go live on Tuesdays, but something really interesting happened to me was it yesterday or the day before? I think I got an email from one of my mentors who invited me and her entire community to have a fresh start to the new year tomorrow, Friday, the 24th of January, which also happens to be the New Year, the Chinese New Year, and it happens to be a new moon. So for somebody who is now or very recently started following the moon cycles, I was like, yes, that totally makes sense for me. Not because it's the new moon, but because energetically it's where I'm at. Last year, I just want to give you a little bit of context. I was so psyched about 2020, like so psyched about 2020. I haven't been excited about a new year, just going to get a little bit more comfortable, in a really long, as excited about a new year in a really long time. I mean, I guess I can't remember, maybe the millennium, that was a bit of anyway, another story. But I was really super excited about it. And part of the reason I was excited about it is because I really got very clear on what my purpose was here on earth in 2019. And of course, my intention and my purpose is to help stressed and overwhelmed women to manage their energy and their time. But I even got more specific. I even got more honed in, and I'm going to talk a lot about this in the coming weeks. But I was so psyched and so excited because 2020 was going to be the year that I was going to change the world, and that I was going to really jump in and make a difference, that I was going to start on day one. I was so excited. But I have to tell you, these last few weeks, it hasn't even been like I often tell my mamas and Melissa, if you're watching, you know this, we have these cycles of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or baby steps, or, baby steps. We need to honor our baby steps because we have so much on our plate. And all of this is true, but that's not where I was at. Where I was at was a 50% pull forward and a 50% push back. I was stagnant. And it was extremely frustrating. So if you've been following me at all lately, then you know that I have, and give me a thumbs up if this resonates with you. Like, I'd love to know, is it just me in this community who feels like she's been 50% held back and 50% pulled forward? Or have you felt it too? Like, have you felt that January you were like chomping at the bit, but completely held back and unable to move forward? Not necessarily, by illness, although in some cases maybe. I have heard of some cases where people have actually felt they've actually gotten the flu and they haven't been able to move forward for that reason. But maybe you just didn't have the energy. Maybe stuff just got in your way. Maybe one of your children became sick. Maybe, that just stuff kept getting in the way of you kind of like jumping into your New Year's resolutions and jumping into your New Year's intentions. So I started, like, in all of this frustration, I always follow astrologists, but in all of this frustration, I really dove deep into the astrology because it was explaining to me what was going on and something that really made sense to me. And it also was telling me that I wasn't alone. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to hop on today, because I believe that, and maybe I'm totally off here, but I think that maybe some of you in this community are also feeling or have also felt the same thing and are blaming yourselves and are maybe feeling really frustrated. But I want to give you some insight into this, and I can't explain the technicalities of it at all. But what I can tell you is that the Capricorn sign is a sign which is very driven. It's about achieving. It's about ticking things off. It's about like reaching your goals and moving forward through your intentions. It's a very masculine energy. It's about accomplishment, and it's about a lot of the time it's about work or business. It's about that kind of. It has that kind of energy to it, and of course, it has been Capricorn season until the beginning of this week. But the sun has been in the constellation of Capricorn, so that's one thing. And then something else was happening in Cancer. And so that was pulling at, I think there was some kind of, I don't understand exactly how it works, but there was something happening in Cancer. Now, Cancer is the sign, something significant. Oh, was it the lunar eclipse? No, that wasn't. Anyway, never mind. But something was happening in Cancer. And I was listening to a podcast. Molly McGuire has a really great intuitive astrology, a really great podcast. And she was saying how there was something happening in Cancer that was really pulling us in that direction. So Cancer, and I do think it's related to the lunar eclipse. So Cancer is that sign which is about your inner child. It's about any kind of wounds that you have, your vulnerability. It's about your relationship to mothering and your relationship to your mother. It's about that really soft kind of nurturing and caring energy. And so it made sense to me that I was being pulled by the Capricorn part of me that really wanted to get stuff done and jump right in and make a change and make a difference in the world. And I was being pulled, and I'm sorry I can't tell you astrologically what was in the Cancer constellation or how it works, but Molly McGuire could tell you, so head on over there to Intuitive Astrology. She's awesome. And so that being pulled by this kind of like desire to be present and desire to be, a mother, and also to kind of reconcile with any of those inner child wounds that were surfacing. And they did surface. All that shit that I thought, I've dealt with it, I've done it, I'm moving forward, they resurfaced. And they resurfaced in the second and third week of January. So last week and the week before. Was that the first or the second? Mostly in the second. And so, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I want to make sure I don't lose anything. So part of us has a Capricorn energy. If you are like one of these mothers who wants to get stuff done, wants to tick stuff off your list, you feel you're really driven in many ways. Maybe you even would call yourself ambitious. And at the same time, you want to be present and conscious as a parent, then you have those two sides of you. You have that Capricorn side of you and that Cancer side of you. Now, it doesn't matter if you believe in astrology or not. We could also say it's a more masculine side of you and a more feminine side of you. And a lot of the time, you're trying to find some kind of a balance in between these two sort of tugs at you. So the big question really is, how do we reconcile these two parts of ourselves? How do we stay present and change the world in the way we want to change the world? And of course, by being present, being conscious parents, we're changing the world. We're raising the future generation, and I'm not in any way taking away from that. I think that is one of the most difficult jobs, one of the most undervalued job probably, and also happens to be actually the most important job. So, having said that, it isn't always the most fulfilling job. And so, should you choose to change the world outside of, being a mother, then you've got maybe these two poles in these opposite directions. And in a patriarchal system where our self-worth and our identities are linked, they give value to being the carer, the caregiver, the house manager, all of that, but they give value to all of those activities, then we internalize all of that, and then it all becomes a little bit more complicated inside of us. And I talk about this in the last video that I made, which is all about how mothers today are always down on ourselves and feel so super guilty, and a lot of that has to do with the internalization of patriarchal messaging. So you can check that out. I think it's the last video that I did before this one. So what I thought I would do today, because I was so excited when I heard this proposition that tomorrow, the 24th of January, the new moon, the Chinese New Year, be reinstated as like the first day of this decade. I got so excited about that. I thought I would share that proposal with you if you're if you have had a similar experience as I've had in the last few weeks. I wanted to share that with you. And then I also wanted to share with you how I personally reconcile or have been reconciling these two kind of energies inside of me in a way that has allowed me to go through this kind of mumbled, weird, annoying last few weeks, and just life in general. But I'm gonna kind of hone in on the stuff that I've done in the last few weeks, because it allows me to get practical, and the more practical I am, the more helpful I believe that I am to you. So how did I approach the last few weeks? I'm going to tell you, it was really hard. And I'm not going to say that I didn't lose my shit with the kids and wish to God or Goddess or the universe or source or whatever you believe in that they were at school, because I did. I really wanted to jump on. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't get pissed off whenever I got distracted by somebody who needed me to help with the finishing up of a task that I believe should have been ticked off my list in 2019, but I was kind of like imagining and pretending that it was, but it wasn't. And I'm not, I did get frustrated, I did get annoyed, I did lose my cool, and yeah, so it wasn't easy. But What I did do that worked was stayed in touch with my body. The whole time I was checking in and staying tuned in to what was going on inside of me. And I talk about this in a video that I did 2 weeks back, where in order for you to know which way to go, when you have to make a choice about being present for your kid or your family, or ticking something off your list and getting something done, there are 2 questions that you ask yourself, and I go into depth in 2 videos ago. But the 2 questions are, what is your body telling you? Okay, so you go into your body and you say, like, I'm going to imagine scenario 1 and I'm going to imagine scenario 2, and which one feels better? And then you follow that lead. And then the second question you ask yourself is, what difference is it going to make in 10 years' time? Scenario 1, scenario 2. So I was doing that almost every single day, right? And a lot of the time, the answer that would come to me was, actually, in order for me to move forward, to go where I want to go, I have to kind of do the cleaning up stuff. Having said that, that's kind of like the Capricorn energy negotiating within itself, or the masculine energy negotiating among itself. But when we're talking about kind of that energy of like the caring energy, it almost always won out. It almost always won out because it was sort of non-negotiable. And I have to say, I could have put the kids in front of the television set or video games or whatever, shut the door and moved on, and take things off my list. But not only was my body in a place to do that, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it also didn't feel like the wisest long-term solution and didn't sit right for me. So I think that's really important. If we trust our bodies, and then we will live a life of no regret. And I talk about that too, living a life of no regret. So so I want to talk a little bit about what I did, sort of, how I stayed tuned in to myself. And a lot of it looked like me having a morning and an evening routine that were really about doing exactly that, about really, checking in with myself and being kind to my body. And before I landed back home from this like paradise, if you follow me on Instagram, and I think my virtual assistant posts my posts in Facebook too, but if you follow me on social media, then you will know that this place was gorgeous because I put some photos up, and we were so privileged and lucky to be there, as a family. And it really was amazing. And so I had this amazing energy, this creativity, and this buzz, but reality bit me on the bum when I got home. And so I was at home, the kids were at home. It just was not feasible for me to move forward in the way that I wanted to move forward. But what I was able to do was maintain this morning and evening routine. So what I wanted to say was that when I was sort of in this paradise, like, pie in the sky living, I listed out a morning routine and an evening routine in my notes function. And I said, this is what it's going to look like. This is what I'm going to share with you, what it's going to look like. And you're going to like, holy shit, Alex, like there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do this, but just stay with me. So 6 o'clock, I would kind of foggily open my eyes. And I would have like this full of water next to me. This is 32 ounces, or in milliliters, I would say 900, almost a liter of water here. Maybe 800, 900. No, it's over. It's like 900. I'd say 800 liters, milliliters, 800 liters. Anyway, have this by my bed, kind of open my eyes. This was my plan, right? And read my book. because I am not like a jump out of bed person. So I thought, okay, you know what? I want to integrate reading into my word. I'd done a very extensive annual review of what turned my crank. Reading is something that did and that I wanted to continue doing. And so the first thing I was going to do in the morning, wake up at 6 and grab my book and read a chapter, read for 20 minutes, finish this, have my enzymes, which would be next to my bed. It helps my digestion. Finish this, 800 milliliters of water or 32 ounces. And then I would, go pee or whatever if I needed to do that. But that was first thing. Then I would go downstairs. Now, how was it? 6:30. I would go downstairs and I would have my lemon juice. No, I wouldn't eat yet. I'd just have my lemon juice and some vitamins and stuff like that. And I would meditate. But I would meditate. I'm laughing because it doesn't always turn out like this. I would meditate for 10 minutes. And then I would start to get like breakfast on the table for the kids. And then at 7 o'clock I would do yoga. So some kind of a mindful movement, mindful practice thing. And then then 7 o'clock the kids would come down and I'd have breakfast on the table. And and my husband would come down at 7. This hasn't happened yet, the husband bit. And we would all have a really good breakfast together. And, my idea is like, what is our intention for the day? We would say at the breakfast table. And anyway, we're working on it. And so then 7:30, the kids are off to school. And 7:30 is when, by that point, I would have my running shoes on and my shorts on and I'd be ready to go. I'd have my baseball cap on. They were leaving. I would leave too. I was going to go for a walk. I was going to move my body. Again, this is one of my New Year's intentions. Move my body every single day. So I was going to go to move my body and then I would be back around 8:15 and I would shower and, prune. And then I was giving myself an hour from 7:30 to 8:30 to go for my walk and listen to my podcast and take in interesting information. So it could be my astrology podcast, it could be a business podcast, it could be a coaching podcast. And then I would come back 8:30 to 9:30. That's a really nice amount of time, an hour that I would give myself to prune, right? And then 9:30 to 10, half an hour for family administration, because last year I was cramming it in, any kind of little gap that I had or letting it interrupt me, but not this year. This year from 9:30 to 10, and I have to say, I've been really good about this. 9:30 and 10 was going to be my family admin time. And then from 10 on, I was going to do the most important tasks related to whatever paid work I was doing that day. So that, my friends, was my morning, or is my morning routine. All right, what do you think of that? Is so, what is the word? Wishful. Should it get done? Absolutely amazing. I actually have to say, I am still excited about this. I laughed my way through it, but I'm still really excited about it. My evening routine looks like this. But, all of this is a work in progress. So my evening routine looks like this. It looks like 8:30, the kids are in bed, and I can leave them. Now, my kids are not little. My youngest is 9, and he's really good about going to bed by himself. So 8:30, I would stop being a mom, and I would... I would set the scene in my room, which involved candles, incense. I have also this oil diffuser thing, which I haven't started using, but that was part of the project. And I would not read because I can't read at night, I'm too tired, but I would get my journal out and I would write in my journal, or this is when, if I didn't meditate in the morning, this is when I would meditate, and I would just do some reflections, have a hot bath, like pruning again, spend not an hour, but a little bit of time washing my face and brushing my teeth, flossing. And so I would have this space of an hour and a half in the evening to kind of write, reflect, look at my moon journal, have a think about my day. So really luxurious is the word that I was looking for. Luxurious routines. Like, I mean, never would I have imagined that I could pull this off, even a few months ago, right? And I have to tell you that these routines it is what has allowed me to stay connected. I'm not going for, and this is really important point and piece of this, how do I balance masculine, how do I balance feminine sort of puzzle, how do I balance that desire to achieve and that desire to be a mother and present, like how do I do that? It's really important that you set systems and structures up for yourself that allow you to stay connected to both of those parts of you, right? So the routine that I'm talking about is completely in alignment with my values. So I did a reflection and I did a review on what worked for me last year and what was important for me last year. I mentioned some of the things. I really thought that reading was major value added to my life. I learned so much. It allowed me to give more to my community. It allowed me to learn more, to be a better partner, to be a better woman, to be a better mother. So reading it's the first thing that I do, or the first thing at least on my list of things to do. Moving my body, major game changer for me. We've never been a highly physical family. I didn't even grow up in a highly physical family. I had friends with really, really, active families, but mine wasn't one. So it's not inherent to me, like it is to some of my friends. And it's a bit of it's something that I have to work on. So the whole body movement thing also is one of those things that I really need to put on a list and work towards. And so, these are lessons that I've learned over time that I really, that these are things that have to be part of my system, part of my structure. So I guess my point two, in addition to setting up systems and structures that support yourself and that you do and that you turn into habits, is my lesson one. The lesson two is make sure that they're based on your values. So have real clarity on what you value and what you're going for here. And then have your routines be a reflection of that. So, and then as long as you're constantly kind of checking in with yourself and asking yourself those two questions that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, then you will be living in alignment with your values, but you will also be honoring your season. And what is so cool about all of this that I've been sharing with you is that in the end, it has totally worked out. So I said no to pushing forward and, sticking the kids in front of the TV, and like ignoring them or okay, I'm not going to lie. I yelled at them, and there were times when I locked myself in my office. It's true. This happened. But I'm not going, but I made a conscious choice not to kind of move forward at the pace that I was going to push myself forward, and to really honor where my body was at. Even like partway through, when all my kids were at school, I don't know what was going on with my body. I'm kind of blaming it on like astrological happenings, and possibly the fact that I got my period, which is a non-creative time for me. I simply cannot write when I'm bleeding. I just can't. I try, and it's a waste of time. When I'm like in my follicular phase or in my ovulatory phase, I can sit down and I can write like there's no tomorrow, but not when I'm menstruating. It's really interesting. So I listened to my body and I slowed down. And because I honored that, I am convinced that when I came out of that and I stepped into my follicular phase, I was on fire. On fire. I am so excited. I have so much energy. So honoring your season is not only about looking at when your kids are home and when your kids aren't at home, or when it's a school holiday and when it's not a school holiday. It's also about knowing what's going on inside of you. And what I was going to say was that what is so cool about all of this is how amazing it turned out in the end. Because in the end, I'm finding myself, not only are my kids at school, not only have I finished a whole bunch of unfinished business, which incidentally is something that I love to do. When I'm menstruating, I love finishing stuff up and analyzing stuff and reflecting. And then when the follicular phase comes along is when I love to sort of start planning and planting seeds and beginning projects. And so guess what? I'm in the follicular phase, and tomorrow's the new moon, which also happens to be an excellent time for planting seeds and starting new beginnings and starting a whole new decade. So it's all worked out in the end. All that muddle and fumble and fuzz and head fuck and heart fuck that was happening in the last few weeks, that was sort of pulling me in these opposing directions, has now, because I was able to be in the mess of it all, has now settled. And this is not to say that it's not going to come back, because I'm sure there will be moments, but it's settled, and now I'm ready in to start 2020. And so my message to you is, if this is kind of a metaphor, right? Let's treat this beginning of this year as a metaphor. If like the first few weeks, the timing isn't working out for you, the external timing, the way things should be, isn't quite working out for you. Maybe it's that you were supposed to have finished something, decluttering the house, or you were supposed to have finished a project with your kid, or you were supposed to have finished a project for yourself and you didn't because your body wasn't, with it. I don't mean like with it, I mean like your body wasn't kind of, up for it. Then trust that it just wasn't meant to be at that time. And I know this is really super hard. And I'm not saying, get fired because you don't finish your report. There's certain areas of your life where you don't have that choice. I'm very lucky because I own my own business and I have a very flexible consultancy job. So I can do, I can do that. But in some cases, you can't do that. But if you're a stay-at-home mom, there's a lot of ways that you can do that. And, I know what I wanted to tell you that I forgot to tell you. And this is about, the routine, this crazy kick-ass, morning and evening rituals and routines that I have happening. I wanted to share with you that part of this kind of checking in with yourself is also part of that process. So for instance, if you have, these intentions and these goals that feel over the top and unattainable, it's not necessarily that you have to change them. Maybe it's more that you have to, this is what I've done with my morning and with my evening routine. Maybe it's more like you have to treat them like the ingredients of a recipe and decide which ones are essential and which ones are not. Or even like a menu plan, so that, for instance, let's say one day I don't get to do the walk, or one day I don't get to do the meditation, or one day one of my kids is really needy in the evening, and so instead of me getting a bath or getting to write in my journal, I don't. Because I've got this really fantastic multi-ingredient recipe happening, I can pick and choose, and I'm never going to be missing out. I'm never going to be empty bucketed. Okay, by that I mean I'm never not going to have enough self-care, because all the stuff that I have to choose from and that I've listed and that I'm aspiring to, if I've got 10 things to choose from and I give myself so much time, I'm so generous around the time that I have to allocate to those things, that I'm definitely going to get 2 or 3 of them done, right? So really, really carve out time for that, because it's what's going to make the hugest difference for you. And I know my kids are older. I know, I live in Brazil, I have help in the house, I know. But there were days when, you know, I had 3 under 5, didn't have any help, living in rainy old England, which I love. I'm not insulting England, I love England. But where I wish I had thought of a bigger pot to choose from when it came to self-care and a more gentle approach to it, so that I wasn't like berating myself and down on myself when I didn't actually manage to get to the yoga class or go for the walk. So what I'm saying is that there needs to be a little bit of flexibility there, but go for gold. Go for gold. It's 2020. I want you to go for gold. So that's what I have to say today about 2020 and starting over and being kind to yourself as you do, and being flexible and making time and the stars and the moon and your period and the way you relate to your energy and your time, making it all work for you, owning it. And let's have a fabulous year together. I am so excited about 2020, and if you have had sort of a rough few weeks, then I invite you to join me. Let me see here what our lovely Melissa says. This is great. I struggle with perfectionism and trying to make things exact. Great work on flexibility. Thank you. Yes. So flexibility is absolutely key. And look how it turned out in the end, right? Okay, so January 1st wasn't exactly, January 1st to 23rd weren't exactly like the runway that I was looking for, but it granted me the time to wrap a lot of stuff up and get more clarity. And so, yay, January 24th is going to be my new year, and I'm flexible about it. And the same is true for the way I'm approaching my morning and my evening routine, right? Is that I'm flexible about it. Like, it's there, I'm going for gold. This is what I want to do, and maybe every once in a while I hit gold, right? It's like, shoot for the moon and you'll get to a star, or shoot for the stars and you'll get to the moon. But, like if you really are generous and kind and luxurious to yourself, then it's going to be good enough for you. Instead of being all skimpy, we're always so skimpy towards ourselves, aren't we? And we really need to start role modeling that generosity and that more kind of luxurious approach to self-care, especially if we want the headspace and the clarity to live out our purpose. And I'm not saying we're going to change the world and live out our purpose and build up our dream business or get our dream job in the next 6 months, but we can start planting the seeds for it. So that's what I have to say. Thank you for watching, my dear. It's wonderful to have you here, and it's such a pleasure. Bye. Happy New Moon year.